So far in this series about playing bebop piano, I've used bebop scales to try to keep the chord notes on the downbeats when we're doing a solo in eighth notes. Just a quick reminder about the bebop scales that I've talked about so far. A bebop dominant scale over a G7 chord is basically a G mixolydian mode with one added note, the F sharp. A bebop major scale over a C major 7 chord is basically a C major scale with one added note, the A flat. And we put these added notes in so that as long as we start on a chord note on a downbeat, doesn't matter which chord note we start on and which direction we go in the scale, all the chord notes will fall on the downbeats. So for instance, if I was playing over a C major 7 chord, I started on E up there. All the chord notes fall on the downbeat. By the way, just to remind you that on the dominant 7th chord, we consider the root, 3rd, 5th and 7th as the chord notes. The other notes, which granted are all upper extensions, but we just think of them as non-chord notes in this context. And really important, on the C major chord, we consider the chord notes to be the root, the 3rd, the 5th and the 6th rather than the 7th. So, in a real world, of course, it's not always possible or desirable to start with a chord note on the downbeat. And this video really is about what to do when we find ourselves landing on a downbeat with a non-chord note. So what exactly is the problem about landing on a non-chord note on a downbeat? Well, let's look at some examples. If we started on the A when we're playing over a G7 chord, the A is the 9th of G7, and there's no clash there, that sounds absolutely fine. However, if you carry on the bebop scale, we end up with F sharp over the G7, which clashes badly with the F. And then the C clashes. If I play the G7 chord there, you can hear the clash between the C and the B. Now these clashes, you feel them more when they're on the downbeats. I start on the 13th, E. The E that sounds fine over the G7 chord, but you get the clash on the C and again on the F sharp. So what are the solutions if we find ourselves with a non-chord note on a downbeat? Well, the first one is a simple one, and it's just simply omit the extra note, just revert to the ordinary mode, so mixolydian mode on a dominant 7th and just a major scale on a major 7th chord. So if we started on the 9th, just play the mixolydian mode until a chord note lands on the downbeat. And in this case, it lands very quickly on the next downbeat. You've got a chord note, and then you can continue with a mixolydian mode. If we start on the 11th, it just takes a bit longer to get to a chord note on a downbeat. But you get there, you get to the F again. We start on the 13th, it takes longer still. We still have to wait till we get to the F before we've got a chord note on a downbeat. So in that case, you might be better using one of the other solutions, but it does work, it just takes a little bit longer. Okay, the next solution, again, it's a simple one, is just play the non-chord note as a crotchet and then carry on the bebop scale in quavers. So it straight away corrects itself. Don't want to I've exercised a little bit of caution about is the 11th, because by making it a crotchet, you have that bit longer to feel that dissonance. As long as it's being played at a reasonable speed, though, it's not going to be there long enough to really jar. The next solution is to play a syncopated rhythm. So go from the non-chord note to the next chord note, but make that next chord note a crotchet, so that straight away it rectifies itself and the chord notes are coming on the downbeat. The next solution would be to play the note above it, and then the non-chord note followed by the note above it, the non-chord note again, but play those two as semiquavers. And then the fifth solution is to play a semitone in between the non-chord note that you're starting on and the next chord note. So notice when you start on the 11th, there is no semitone between the 11th and the 3rd, but what you can do is go to the semitone below the 3rd. That works really well. Start on the 13th. Okay, so that's 5 solutions to the problem. The two great jazz educators, David Baker and Barry Harris, have written extensively about this, and they come up with lots and lots of solutions, so they're well worth looking at. In the introduction, there were a couple of places where I had to use one of these solutions. One was on the G7 going to C major 7. This is the second bar. If I'd carried on with a bebop dominant scale, I'd have played F sharp, which would have meant that I was landing on F over the C major chord, which clashes badly. So instead, I just reverted to using the Mixolydian mode. Now, on the C major 7 chord, I could have started with that arpeggio, starting on the 3rd. If I'd have just played that in straight quavers, it would have been... And then I could have gone on to the C, so there wouldn't have been that problem. We wouldn't have had any non-chord notes on the downbeat. But because I chose to play a triplet, that meant that I was ending up on the 9th on the downbeat. So I just used the solution of putting a semitone in between that chord note and the next, in between that non-chord note rather, and the next chord note. Sorry. Okay, hope you found that useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.